Everyone to the Dad Cartel podcast. I'm excited to bring you conversations with great dads from across the country. Please follow the Dad Cartel on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all social media places if you found value in this episode. And please share with other dads to help us create a great dad culture. If you're interested in participating as a guest, please email me at prouddad@dadcartel.com or just hit a DM on any of the platforms that I mentioned. Today, I'm joined by Toliver Ray, a country artist and a dad as well. Hey, how are you, Toliver?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good, man. Good. Excited to talk to you. This has been a long time coming. You were one of the guys that reached out when I put out a video of where the badass dad's at, and I know you mentioned you did music, so let's just jump right in, man. What resonated with you with the content that we're putting out?
Just a lot about how I was watching one of the clips that you have posted. I think it was about an attorney that was talking about
Mhm.
pretty much how the system, how it works, and I've had experience going through that, going through custody battles, um, and just everything that you post, man. It just relates a lot to me, and so
Mhm.
it was one of those things where I just felt the need to just reach out and just compliment you on what you do, and I was kind of it's good to see that a lot of good dads are coming together, and that it's just pretty much a whole entire big old family too.
Yeah, man, it's been amazing the response I've gotten so far, just of dads that want to share their story, and I've heard everything from, I'm raising my kids with my wife, and that's this kind of very stable kind of environment to I ended up raising my daughter when she was like 2 months old, right? Like by myself. I've heard all those different stories and everything in between. It's pretty crazy and amazing. And it's been really exciting to hear the different perspectives all the way from, everyone that doesn't have to fight for their rights to the ones that do and talk about how difficult that is. So what's your experience been like? Tell me your dad origin story.
Well, I've got two kids. I've got a 5-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son, and man, they definitely make you work. And but
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
it's all worth. It's so definitely all worth it. Um,
Yeah.
Now I was married, and then got pregnant with our son before we got married, and then later I got pregnant with our daughter, and it was funny how I actually found both of those out. I found out I was my ex wife was pregnant with my son on my birthday, so
Mhm.
that was a pretty
That's
awesome birthday
awesome.
gift.
Yeah.
And then it was funny. The second one I'll never forget, just because it was just a hilarious moment. I was getting talked about like what I wanted from Raising Cane's, and she brought Raising Cane's bag over, and I'm like looking in there, and there's like this shirt, and there's just like napkin full of something, and I'm like, "Where's the chicken at?" And then I look up the shirt, and it says Super Big Bro, and it took me a minute to really kind
Uh,
of put that together, and I was like, "We're having another baby," and yeah,
nice.
I
Very
I'll
cool.
never live that. I would never live that one down for a while.
Yeah, nice. Hey, does that make you like double take when you like open up a Raising Cane's bag?
Not anymore.
Initially,
uh,
right? You're like, guess what? We're having triplets.
it's just one of those things where I just kind of look at it now. That's kind of funny and ironic because twins actually ran in her family,
Oh
and
man.
so I was so like now when I open anything, I'm just like, yeah, expect the unexpected at this point.
Yeah. It can't be more exciting than that, right? That's awesome. That's a cool way
Oh
to
yeah,
find out, man. We were my wife and I were just so excited to try again that we didn't like she didn't feel the need that she could hide it from me. So even like when she did the first the pregnancy test and she's like, I don't want to look at it, you look at it. So I didn't get the surprise, but I got to see it first technically. So that was pretty cool. I got to see like, yeah, she's
that's
pregnant now
awesome.
and that was exciting too in its own way, man. So
Yeah.
that's cool, man. So you're a father of two, 5
hmm
and 7. What are some of the things that you do with your kids? What are some of the things they enjoy to do?
Well, right now since the summer, they love to swim.
Mm,
I was down with strep throat, um, all
ooh,
last like pretty much all weekend, and so I'd had my week vacation off of work, and we decided to go out to my grandparents who
mm,
live by a lake, and
mm,
my son gets sick while we're there, and then
Oh man.
and then I get sick, and my kids love it so much they knew I was sick, and they're like, they go, "Daddy, if you jump in the pool and come swim, your fever will come down. It'll help you." And
Nice.
I was like, I don't know about y'all, but I feel worse after I swim. Like I'm just
Yeah.
super tired. I'm super tired and super relaxed. But they love, yeah,
Yeah.
they love swimming. My daughter, she loves makeup. She is a girly girl, and so when
Yeah.
she says that you're a princess, you are a princess. That's just the way it
Yeah.
goes as a dad. And my
Nice.
son, my son, he's more of a, like, he has a Nintendo Switch, so we'll be playing Mario Kart, and then we'll jump on
Mhm.
the trampoline together. There's just a lot of stuff that we do together because we live on
Yeah.
about 5 acres, and there's just a
Nice.
lot to do in a small town, and kind of living isolated, but not so isolated where there's not neighbors. Just your neighbors aren't as
Yeah.
close. It's
Yeah.
just a nice place to. It's a good place to raise kids, and
Yeah.
just because there's so many activities, like we're currently working on a go kart right now because my son's been begging for it, so we're trying to get that
Yeah.
up and running.
Nice. Yeah, that's fun, man. Just that's one of my dreams, man, to have a lot of land like that where you just spread out, right, and do whatever you want,
Yeah,
and just have kind of that lifestyle where you can do things outside. That's it feels like that's one of the things that has been lost as I think as technology has advanced, people just are staying inside more and more, right? And
yeah,
growing up as a kid, you can probably relate to this more than me. It's just being
yeah,
outside all the time, right? Just constantly playing with your friends and constantly riding bikes and getting into all sorts of things, building ramps. That was one thing I did as a kid, building like bike ramps and
yeah,
jumping off of them and potentially breaking your arm every single time. But it was fun, man. It was doing stuff like that. And I feel like kids are just into Minecraft and crap like that these days, which is, it's fun in its own way, but I feel like you lose something when you don't have that ability to go outside and play.
yeah. It cracks me up because, like me, like my parents raised me great. Even though I was probably the angel with black wings, as my mom called me. Um, And so, like, I was raised to get outside. Like when I was a kid, the Xbox first came out. So when
Yeah.
that came out, I was obsessed with it. But my parents were always very good at mixing both. Like they knew when I could be in here playing, and then they're like, okay, get off and actually go be a kid and go get dirty, scrape knees, like a kid should experience when they're younger. And so that's
Yeah.
what I do with mine. And my kids are actually really good when it comes to that. They're not too addicted to the devices, except for maybe watching YouTube on TV, which drives me nuts. But
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. I've as we're talking, I have Miss Rachel, my wife has Miss Rachel on probably with their daughter, and we try to limit that too, but it's kind of unavoidable. Kids like that stuff, and it's a balance,
oh
right?
yeah,
That's kind of what we're figuring out, and the advice I've gotten it's try to balance it out, right? Don't make it their entire lives, but it's okay every now and then. But yeah,
yeah,
man, I can't imagine what it's like to grow up as a kid these days, and as a parent navigating all the different things that are coming up, whether it's like where to put them in school, or how to approach like the sports, like different things like that. I talked about it quite a bit with a couple different dads on. There's a time right now where there's a lot of like participation trophies being given out and things like that. And what do you what's your take on sports with your kids? Are they involved in organized sports yet? Or are they going to be? What's your kind of experience with that been?
Well, my son, he was playing soccer,
Mm,
and he loved it. But it's kind of gotten a little bit. I'm gonna say he's a little timid of it right now, and he
mm,
always wants to just, like, not that soccer shouldn't be fun, but me
mhm.
personally, I'm not a fan of soccer at all. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, and football, and went to college for
Yeah,
football. So, like,
yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm like, I gotta get in let's get in there and play. But they both do gymnastics, and well,
Oh, cool.
my daughter did, but my son does it now. And he says he wants to play soccer, but we're not going to put him in it until he actually wants to work at it, which
Yeah,
we're not going to waste money like that. But
yeah.
he's actually really good in gymnastics. Like even when I
Awesome.
even when I was in diehard shape, I couldn't even climb a rope. and he can climb a
Yeah.
rope that's all the way in a tall building and touch the top. Like
Oh man.
it's amazing on how. And I'm not gonna lie, being that like dad that wants you to get down and dirty when it comes to sports and rub dirt on
Yeah.
it, like I was raised. And
Yeah.
when they wanted to do gymnastics, I was a little bit. I was like, man, that's more of a girl thing. And
Yeah.
but then actually thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? He'll probably get interested in that when he's a little older, and
Yeah.
it's actually helping his coordination right now. And
100%.
so I look at positives now, and I try as much as I would love for him to be playing basketball because that was my favorite thing. Because
Yeah.
we'll be out in the driveway just shooting hoops, and he just has this natural stroke.
Yeah.
And with this, so I'll lower the goal, and then I'll see him shoot, and I'm like seeing the rotation on the ball, and I'm like, man, why do you not want to play basketball? But I'm sure
Nice.
he'll get. I'm sure they'll get there when a little older. But yeah,
Yeah.
gymnastics right now is the thing.
Yeah, it's a great base, man. I've said it before. There's a UFC champ, George St. Pierre, who talks about that. They ask him, if you could go back in time, what would you start with in terms of martial arts? And he says it wouldn't even be martial arts. He says I would start with gymnastics because it's just the
Yeah.
strength and the coordination and the balance that it gives you. He says you can apply that to any kind of martial art and any sport. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really powerful. And it got me thinking too. Like I've always thought about that for my daughters. Like if I have daughters and now I have one, but thinking of like with you, I didn't think about it really for my son. But when he put it in that context, I'm like, yeah, you know what? He's right. There's those guys are one, they're incredibly strong, both body weight and just naturally. And being able to apply all of that. I mean, you name the sport and you can figure out an application for it, right? Another good example is who is it, Vasily Lomachenko, the boxer, how his dad, he was
Yeah.
like a amazing amateur boxer, and then his dad takes him out of boxing before he goes pro, I think, and then just puts him in ballet for what was it, like 2 or 3 years, and everyone's like, what the like ballet? And
Yeah.
watch the guy fight, right? If you've ever seen him fight, like some of the best footwork in the
Yeah.
game. And it's amazing, right? And it seems counterintuitive, but being able to pick up those different things in different sports or disciplines, you can find a way to apply them. And again, if you get past the stigma, I think you can really kind of find the bigger application. But that's awesome, man. That seems like
Yeah.
it's a really good fit for your kids.
Oh yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I used to make fun of ballet until I tried till we had to do it for exercises and call it and during football practice, and
Yeah.
that is very hard. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. 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 It's next level stuff, man. It's crazy. I think it can be done. I think what ruins it, probably the pink tutus. If they got rid of that and just like gave you guys like shorts or something that you can wear, and it's a lot more palatable. That's
Oh
funny.
yeah, definitely.
Nice. Nice. So man, tell me about the country music. I know that was something that you sent me one of your songs, man. I loved it.
Yeah.
I sent it to my wife and I showed it to her. She's like, "Wow, that's really good." And we were listening to it. I'm like, "I love it, man." So tell me about the career, the music career, what you're doing, and even the song that you sent me.
So, so basically, how it all like that started basically how probably about how anybody would start. Sometimes you've always been interested in it, but I've never the only music I've ever done or sang in front of people was at a karaoke with about 7 beers in. But um, so I was just sitting one day. It was this is kind of having to take a time back. So
Hmm.
it's May of 2021. Um, there was some. I may have made some joking comments or sarcastic comments or something, and maybe there was some miscommunication on it, and I
Hmm.
ended up getting accused of child abuse. And
Oh
so,
man.
and then out of nowhere, I find out, get a text from their mom saying that she took the kids out of daycare, that she's filed a report against me, to give her DHS, and
Hmm.
I didn't see my kids pretty much for almost probably like once for 15 minutes for like almost 3 months because I had
Yeah.
left for Fort Irwin, California to go for training because I served for
Mhm.
6 years, and so it was one of those. Of course, it was devastating, and I went through this
Yeah.
big whole entire depression. And how it all went was that there was nothing filed in court. There was nothing that was legally where she was okay to keep them from me. She was just keeping
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And there is a statute that does place that does say something about um, you know the only reason you can keep keeping the kids or suspending the visitation if backed up with like evidence or reasonable belief or something like that.
Yeah.
And some of the comments, I forget that we live now in a time where we can't even joke about things that we got disciplined with or anything when we were
Yeah.
kids. And so that part's on me. And
Mhm.
then we went to court. Um, I hired a lawyer, and she had a court order to see the DHS report, and there never was an investigation ever ran. There was nothing. They didn't see reason to believe that they had to. Went to
Yeah.
court. I got my visitation back, um, and it still went on. Still went through battle the whole entire time.
Yeah.
That's a whole entire different thing. But with the
Yeah.
music wise, when I didn't see my kids, I was going through so much depression and so much anxiety. And I used to give my friends grief on that because I never really understood why anybody could be depressed or have just be panicky
Yeah.
until it finally happened to me. So yeah, I definitely understand and know what it feels like now. And so
Yeah.
to kind of get me through it, I just started writing in a journal, and then eventually it turned into poetry. And then one day I was just scrolling through YouTube and I saw this thing that says country type instrumental. And I'm like, what's this? And it's just basically just a kind of country song that just had no lyrics to it, no music, nobody singing to it. It's just the music playing. So I wrote to it, and that's where I started writing. And then I wrote a
Yeah.
song basically about what I was going through, and then it turned into I was like, this is a really good song. I want to get this out there. I feel like
Mhm.
this is going to relate to a lot of single dads or even single moms.
Yeah.
This happens to single moms too, but
Yeah.
obviously the popular ones are usually pretty much single dads that go through this. But
Yeah.
uh, and then kind of after that, I went and recorded it, and that then I heard myself actually after it was done, and I was like, wow, that's me. Okay, cool. And then I played it for my parents, and my parents they have never sugarcoated anything. Um, and for me, ever in my life, if they thought something wasn't good, they weren't going to tell me it was. And when I saw how they both reacted to it,
Yeah.
it and then I was just going to sell the song, try to get it out to somebody, some type of country artist, just so it can be heard. And then
Yeah.
my mom convinced me to actually release it myself.
Yeah.
And after the time when it was finished, we were still going through the case, and my lawyer advised me not to release it just yet because it could look bad to a judge or
Yeah.
something.
Mhm.
Which I mean, you heard the lyrics to it. It's nothing about
Yeah.
talking bad about her. It's basically asking questions on why.
Yeah.
Um, but that's how the music thing got started for me. And
Yeah.
enough time has passed where that song is actually one of two singles that I'm actually going to release next.
Mhm.
Just because that song at first it was about my story, and then seeing how my best friend reacted because he's been through worse than I have, and
Yeah.
seeing how it brought him to tears and how much it related to him. I'm like, this isn't just my song anymore. This is
Yeah.
everybody that goes through this song. But after everything, me and my ex-wife, we co-parent great now.
Yeah.
We communicate, we work together, and I think it was just a miscommunication thing. Despite what I thought, maybe then I thought, before, obviously in that situation, you're thinking nothing but personal, but
Right.
but maybe it was something that had to happen, and to
Yeah.
get to where we are now, and we work great. And I don't, and even though part of me will always still be wondering, like, why'd she do that? But another part of me
Yeah.
is kind of trying to see it from her side and understand it.
Oh.
and so I definitely don't have any ill grief towards her for that,
Yeah.
because look where it's got us. It's got us to a good place, and I feel like this is even of advice to a lot of dads out there that may hate, or just be pissed off at their kid's mom, is that, in the end, it's not about you, it's about them, and you have to try to work
Mhm.
it out the best you can.
Yeah.
Um, but
That's
that's where
that's beautiful, man.
but
Yeah,
that's where but
that's
that's where but that's where music's led. That's where music led me. It was good therapy for me, and I advise anybody, even if you're not an artist, you're not a singer or anything like that, just go on YouTube and just randomly just start write a song about it, and get your feelings out there. Because trust me, it is good therapy, and you never know. You never creating something out of, and just sharing your story is something. Even if it's just three people, it's
yeah.
it's it's truly amazing, and I thank my kids for that. And I'm actually currently, um, writing a song. Also, it's called Father's Day, and basically, it's just talking about how my kids make every day feel like Father's Day when I'm with them. So it's
It's awesome,
definitely
man.
led me to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. What a cool story of turning such a negative experience into something positive, right? And man, I can't even imagine that situation. I've heard that from a couple dads, but being in scenarios like that, and it's just trying to sit there and empathize with it is tough, man. Well, it's not tough to empathize, but to picture myself in the situation, but empathizing for sure, because no one wants to be
Yeah,
away from their kids. Anyone that has kids can totally relate to that and say, like, even being away from them for a day is tough, and much less if you already have a different kind of setup where you don't see them as often. I can imagine that's even more brutal. But man, props to you to take that negative experience and turn it into something that's positive, right? And turning it into something that's constructive, because man, I'll tell you right now, a lot of people would kind of just devolve into something else, right? Abusing drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be, and just say, you know what, it's all her fault, it's all so and so's fault, it's the world's fault, and it doesn't sound like you're that type of person that would just do that, and it's tough, man. I can imagine how easy it is to turn to something like that, but instead you said, I'm gonna become, I'm gonna put this down somewhere, and I think that's getting it out somehow is important, right? You mentioned writing the song and then being able to show it to your parents and then show it to your friend. And, I think that's where it starts, being able to kind of get it out there and talk to someone and show someone and kind of show someone what you're going through. Right. And, I think the one part that you said that resonated with me really strongly is like that song's not yours anymore. It's for dads, and it's for dads that have gone through this. And that's incredible, because I can imagine someone's heard it and has said, or will hear it and will say, you know what, I needed that right now. We all need a little boost every now and then, right? Especially as dads, and it's the kind of the forgotten, uh, we're kind of like the forgotten parent sometimes, and it's not, again, it's not to like say, oh, please pat us on the back, but it's sometimes we need that little extra boost to keep going, right? To just kind of change our demeanor a little bit, to change our outlook, or to lift our spirits, because I think moms need it for sure too, and I feel like they get that, and I think dads also need it. So man, that's incredible.
yeah. I mean, that's one thing. And for of course, we hadn't said it on here, but with the song being called "Another Chance," which is when you first hear, when you see the title, you don't think about, you thinking about it's maybe a love song, maybe trying to get another chance with
Mhm.
somebody else. But
Yeah.
um, the hard lesson that I had to learn for myself, and then seeing how sort of similar situations or even worse situations due to friends of mine, is that
Mm.
they get so dark in these times, and they don't
Yeah.
try to look at the light that is actually at the end of the tunnel, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel for everybody, no matter what the situation is. It just
Yeah.
it's one of those things I had to learn, that I can't let it defeat me. And um, seeing how much of an impact that did for me, and then seeing how it did for my friend, and I actually showed that song to my manager when me and him first met, and
Mhm.
then he's a dad, and he's married, And when he heard it, he said that we have to get that song out there because that song is going to save lives. And that was the first time I ever
Absolutely.
heard. That was the first time I ever heard that. I mean, I've heard that I relate to that. Oh man, that song is emotional. I can really feel that
Yeah.
story. And then hearing that is what made me want to push it even further to get this out there,
Yeah.
and then even, and hey, if you want to play it on here and introduce it, so when it comes out, man, it's just one of those things
Yeah.
where I think a lot of
100%.
people need to hear it, and I hope that it opens a lot of eyes to people going through this battle to not be just full of hate, and
Yeah.
move forward and just show your kids the strength you have, so when if they ever go through this situation, they can know where that strength comes from, and they can have that force for themselves one day too.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like you went through that? It sounds like you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but to me it feels like it almost feels like you had to go through that terrible situation so that you can share that experience with everyone else, right? And hopefully either prevent that situation or help someone get through it. But do you feel like that happened for a reason? Like it was like you experienced that for a reason?
I've always lived life. I think God works in mysterious ways, even if I don't like it a lot of times. And it's just one of those. And we never, even like like when my kid's mom, our marriage, we didn't really get along. And then even after, we did not get along. We actually pretty much hated each other. Um, and then something like this happened, and then seeing the progress, how far we've come from that,
Yeah.
it was one of those things that, yeah, I think it did, because we probably wouldn't be here now if something like that didn't happen. And so it's kind
Yeah.
of hard for me to, it's kind of hard for me not to forgive that situation, because I'd admit I wasn't looking at it from her side either. I was
Yeah.
just more focused on what was happening to me, and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of it wasn't even her either. It was her lawyer. Her lawyer wasn't
Mm.
responding to mine, and we were. I was getting costs drawn up on me, and my attorney actually wasn't really aggressive when it comes to this type of situation either.
Yeah.
Um, and the judge kept giving chance after chance after chance after chance, no matter how many times we filed for a grievance and for attorney's fees, because her lawyer was screwing up. We thought it was her up until we ended up finding out later it was actually her attorney, which she ended up getting rid of and then hiring one who actually knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Um, and he was actually more understanding, and actually was more.
Mm.
He was a lot easier to work with when it comes to my lawyer.
Yeah.
Um, but it showed that it doesn't matter what you do. The DHS and the system is so corrupt, and so I see a
Yeah.
lot of dads who are absolutely worthless, and they don't give a crap about their kids, and DHS doesn't go after them. But
Right.
DHS came after me and said I owed, I think it was like, it started out as $5,600 in back child support, which I was current when before court started, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden I wasn't. And then if somehow, for some reason, it kept going up to eventually I paid $7,100 to get even. And then I
Yeah.
wanted that in writing, because I was like, yeah, I'm not paying that. You're not saying I owe anymore. This is ridiculous. And
Right.
it's one of those things where I've wanted to, the bigger my platform gets going, the more I want to fight for the father's rights, and actually
Absolutely.
speak out against the system, because it is corrupt. The system is all about punishing, not just good dads. This happens to moms too. I and I have to verify that sometimes, because some people just don't really hear that side.
Yeah.
But in this situation, we're talking about dads, so it's but the good dads and good parents that are going through this battle, while the other just gets away with it. The good parents and good dads are getting punished for being good dads, because they know that
Yeah.
we're not going to evade the child support that they say that we owe, and we don't owe really.
Yeah.
We're gonna do what we can to keep our kids in our lives. I mean that's what a parent does. You do anything, whether you think
Yeah.
it's bull crap or not. And I mean, yeah, the system is definitely corrupt and it definitely needs to be fixed. But what do
Yeah.
I know? I'm just a country artist.
Hey man, I've heard that from a lot of different dads, and I have some family members going through that right now, and it's brutal, right? I completely agree. Just from what I've seen and researched, and just starting the podcast and all the socials with it, it's
Hmm.
man, it's terrible. It's you see how one-sided it really is, and supposedly it's for the benefit of the child, but then you start really going into the stats, right? I make a ton of content about it, that kids need their dads, and when kids don't have their dads in their lives, it's the stats are there, man. It's night and day. 80 something percent of kids that aren't raised with their fathers are in prison, right? The people in prison, 80 something percent of them weren't raised by a dad. It's just the numbers are astronomical when it comes to the negative effects of being fatherless, right? And fatherlessness has its own kind of different categories, but basically what it comes down to is the dad's not present in the kids' lives. And
Yeah,
I completely agree with you, man. The system is so one-sided and uh so archaic in how it's set up right now that it doesn't make sense. It's not, who is it really benefiting, right? It potentially vindictive parents that that want to say, I have a personal my personal relationship with the father of my child, or vice versa, the mother of my child isn't great, so I'm going to take the kid away. And it's almost like this punitive measure to just hurt the parent. But if it was really focused on the kids, then it wouldn't be that way, right? And that's what the system needs to really, that's why it needs to be overhauled, in my opinion, because it feels like it's more meant to punish a parent rather than to benefit the child. And that
yeah,
I think there's significant changes that need to be made. And again, with what I'm doing, I'm trying to change that as well, man. I'm trying to get some more attorneys on here. Um, I think what it comes down to is it's gonna take not just even attorneys, it's gonna be like a massive kind of lobbying issue of this needs complete reform, right? And where does that start? In local legislatures all the way up to federal legislatures, right? And making the
yeah,
change there. But it's terrible right now. And I think a lot of people are starting to see that.
yeah. It definitely is. If anything, it's getting worse. Like I have my aunt and uncle. They're fostering two family members, and I think they're 3 and 4.
Mhm.
And their mother and her whole entire side is they're drug addicts, and they're crazy people.
Yeah.
They even slashed my aunt's tires. They've done a bunch of
Wow.
stuff, and DHS has sent her to drug court, and she's supposed to have, she gets visitation from, to see her kids. Their dad, I hear, pretty decent. But I believe it's my aunt's cousin or niece. That's the mother
Mm.
that of the kids that they're fostering. And DHS continuously just does nothing but give her chance after chance after chance, and does not.
Yeah.
Because here in Oklahoma, it's a mother state, so it's
Mhm.
not exactly shocking to see them
Yeah.
giving them chances. But it's gotten so crazy to where, I remember when I was younger, you did something bad. I mean, you got your tail whipped. That's how it was.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And now you can't even use that as a threat anymore.
All right.
And like, and if a kid says something, they say that kids. This is what I was told. I thought my kids were old enough to be able to say where they want to live,
Yeah.
and apparently they say kids don't know nothing when up until they're like 15. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I don't agree with that, but all right. um, but when a 2-year-old says something like dramatic, like, oh, I got punched in the face, oh, DHS is going to listen to it and going to believe
Yeah.
it all of a sudden and want to
Right.
investigate. So it's like, okay, it's a double standard, it's hypocritical.
Yeah, that's a weird kind of double standard, right? Because they'll use kind of that context for a lot of different situations of like kids can't make rational decisions or decisions like that. But we see it even worse in situations like that, right? Where say that they'll, if anyone that's been around a kid, especially like kids from that age, right, 2 to 5, they say a lot of crazy things like I'm a dinosaur or I'm a, I'm a pirate and things like that, right? And we take that and we say, yeah, that's okay, like go ahead, keep playing, right? But
Yeah.
if they say things like, what you just mentioned, yeah, I think there should be a certain amount of like consideration, and they should for sure like look into it, like, hey, let's make sure nothing happened. But it shouldn't become this like witch hunt, right? Especially when you're talking about like the parent that it's with, right? If it was like a stranger, then yeah, for sure, I think that's a little more serious, and you should probably take it that way. But if it's with you or the mom or vice versa, right, whatever might happen, then there needs to be a little bit of consideration of like the stage of that kid, where they're at. So that's crazy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the horror stories I hear, man, are so bad. And so what do you think, um, what how would you use your platform in that case, right? I see it as you're making music that people are listening to, and the theme being, dads and what they go through. How do you plan on helping the dads out there?
Mainly just because there's so many suicide rate. The suicide rate is ridiculous
Yeah.
on how many of these dads that go through that actually really give a crap about their kids, and it just drives them it just drives them to the point of giving up. And a lot
Yeah.
of that is to help in kind of a therapeutic way. I mean, obviously I'm not no
Yeah.
therapist, but in, just, reaching out, or if they want to, if they ever want to know how I got through it, or if they need help. Obviously, like I said, this is a work in progress. The bigger the platform, the
Yeah.
more help I can give. If they need help, and I want to be able to give them the information to provide to get that help, to
Yeah.
uh, to be able to get it when they're going through that situation.
Mhm.
Maybe with somebody who's been through it, or somebody, just to listen, because that's
Yeah.
a lot of therapists do, is they ask you and then they listen. And then something I saw that actually inspired me to do this is that there's this she was on this girl, she was on American Idol, not this last season but the season before, and she goes by Hunter Girl. And what she does is that she does music therapy for veterans. And
Oh, that's
it
awesome.
kind of gave me the idea of like doing music therapy for dads that are going through this,
Yeah.
because some of the best songs are, one thing, when I wrote that song, and then the more time passed, and after the couple other songs I released, it made me realize that there's not, you always hear songs about dads, about their kids growing up, or how, like kind of like Kenny Chesney's song, "There Goes My Life," about how, he thought his life was over, and it turns out it was just beginning.
Yeah.
And then, but I never noticed there's never really I haven't really heard a song that actually talks about the struggle of like going through a bad, or not having your
Yeah.
kids. And that's why I think that what makes, to me, that's what makes that song so unique.
Yeah.
And and if there is more, and like I said, with the music therapy, helping somebody just come up with a song, and everything like that, to get all their thoughts on paper, and then even like maybe learning how to play guitar, like to giving guitar lessons one day. I mean, I can't play it right now, I'm still trying to learn.
Awesome.
But it's just one of those things, like there's a lot of programs out there, and that have inspired me to kind of like
Yeah.
make some of those programs and turning them into music therapy type of way, that's going to help
I love
that.
that.
So, and if it's
Yeah.
one of those things, it's like they're probably like a program I'd call, like, for just throw it out, just maybe like guitars for dads or something like that.
Yeah.
Just something in that type of aspect.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that, right? It's trying to, it's really trying to help where you can. And I think that's where we create a lot of this change. That's where my idea for this came from, right? It was kind of similar to what you're talking about, where as a new dad, I was coming into this and I'm thinking, how the fuck am I gonna do this? That was like my first thought of like I feel ready, but at the same time, there's so much I don't know. And it's not the easiest thing as a man to go to another man and say, hey, how did you become a dad, and how is it, how is it, what should I look out for, things like that. It's not the easiest kind of natural conversation I think for any guy to have. And for me, I had certain people in my life I can kind of pick their brain and things like that. But for me, it was thinking through, like, I want to be the best possible dad I can be. How do I do that? And it was, in my head was talk to other dads, right? That's learn from what they're going through and what they experience. And kind of along that journey of when I started building it out, man, it was a lot of like, there's not really anything out there for dads in terms of being able to talk about real issues that they're going through and real issues and experiences. It's a lot of this kind of like, here's the product that you should try as a dad, and it'll make your life easier. And here's your like 5 tips to like put your baby to sleep and things like that. And I feel like that content is just kind of like a rebranded version of content that was made for moms, but just kind of applied to
Yeah.
dads. and and it's not really what I was looking for. I was looking for kind of like, I want the real conversations like the one we're having, right? Of what are some of these things that people are going through, and how can we, how along the way I was thinking, how can we give dads a voice, because I feel like we don't have that, right? We're portrayed in media and different kind of outlets as these like aloof one half of the parent that forgets the kids at soccer practice and things like that. Whereas like, no, we're one important half of the parenting puzzle, right? And for me, it's continuously become more and more of like, I want to give people I want to build this platform so I can give it to dads to actually talk about what they're experiencing, things like you're experiencing, right? Things that you're trying to do to help other dads. And then that way we create this big massive fact of change, right? Because it can't just be one of us. It has to be all of us kind of working together to do that. So I'm excited to support anything you're doing, man. I think it sounds like a great idea to me, and I think it's going to benefit a lot of dads. And like you said, I think the songs you're making are gonna save dads. It's gonna, whether it's a dad who's on the edge, or it's a dad that's becoming a dad, and maybe he's going into it in a terrible kind of like relationship situation, and he's saying, what's going to happen in case I get divorced and whatever may happen. But I think music is so powerful in that regard that it can get you through really tough times, man. It's like one
Mhm.
song for me when I was becoming a dad was that Kane Brown song for my daughters. It
Mhm.
was just, it resonated so much with me of like, my dad wasn't around, and like I'm gonna do everything differently, and I'm gonna do it the right way, and I'm gonna be there for my daughter and for my kids. So man, I love that. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, much appreciated, my guy.
Yeah. I think it's gonna go such a long way. So man, so what are some of the plans then in that case? Are you planning any type of live events and tours, or what are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, I've had to get new guys, so they're having to, they're having to learn a lot. But I'll be having new material come out, um, and don't worry, it's not all depressing. But
Hey,
now
it,
yeah, I've got two songs out right now. One's called "What You Drinking," and the other one I just released in May is called "Better Man." And the next, and I was gonna wait till it gets closer, but I'll figure I'll go ahead and announce it to you. The next song I will be releasing is called Rewind to 17. And basically that song is just about, it kind of takes you back to when you were 17 years old, and then you grow up, and it just, you wish you can just rewind back to that age. Um, and then of course I'm going to release another chance, which that's the plot twist, is that I'm actually going to, instead of having just this regular single drop, it's going to be a two dropper. So
mm,
um, yeah, I'll have that. But still got to do some work on that stuff, and then eventually come out. But I'll be putting announcements. But I'm getting my guys ready to do some live events. I got my guitars. We've actually been talking about going live on TikTok and Facebook, and
yeah.
just do some stuff on here, and then actually just getting out there, and then actually going live on TikTok out in the public, and that way everybody can watch.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
really exciting. Starting from no music experience ever to getting to here, it is. I mean, it's been surreal. I actually got to there's a couple of artists I've actually got to see. Cody Hibbard, um, who is he's a country singer, and uh, when you hear him, you don't he doesn't sound anything like he looks. He is actually
Yeah.
Asian.
Uh-huh.
He sounds like your average like country farm boy.
Yeah.
Um, then the Chad Cook band, who my manager represents, and went and saw them. Got to live the life for a night. Got to see how it works all behind behind the curtain.
Oh,
Got to
nice.
meet all them. They're really cool dudes, and it made me more excited for it. And it's I definitely plan on performing that song and actually sharing that message, because that's just that song I feel like everybody needs to hear. Even if
Yeah.
they're not parents, maybe they can just actually see what and listen
Yeah.
to what the story is, and maybe it impacts them for the future. Who knows? But no, we're still working
Yeah.
on it right now. I don't have anything current going on, but I'll be releasing some stuff, and I'll have a website created and everything, and it'll show everything like that. But
Beautiful,
now,
man.
if anybody wants to, keep up with anything coming up or any songs I'll be playing on there on TikTok, just go follow my TikTok and Facebook, and Toliver Ray Music. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think you mentioned something that we don't talk about a lot here, but it's a great point of maybe you're not a parent, but hearing the music you're putting out or the things we're talking about, right? I think it makes you way more well-rounded as a person, understanding what, some of your friends may be going through as parents, as dads, especially. It goes such a long way. I talk about empathy a lot here. And, being able to empathize with dads is going to be really beneficial, man, because if you see someone in your life who's a dad who's stressed out, you may not have an idea of why, right? And maybe you have some kind of context of like they're going through certain struggles with their significant other or their former significant other, and that's why they're stressed out. But you may not really understand what that's really like. Hearing some of this music and hearing some of the things we're talking about, I think, is gonna give you another kind of level of empathy, I think, just being able to really kind of at least understand what those feelings really are behind that situation. And, I encourage everyone to kind of just check up on dads that right? Just, I talked about it on a different podcast. It goes as it's as simple as saying, "Hey, like, how are you?" Like, really just trying to dig into, like, no, not like kind of like base level bullshit, like, "Hey, how's it going?" It's more like, "Hey, how are you though?" And I think whenever I'm sure you can relate to it, whenever someone's said something like that to me, it's gone such a long way where you can feel the sincerity of they're genuinely curious, how am I doing? And sometimes that's all the outlet I need to just say, what, I'm kind of stressed, but I'm getting through it, and life's gonna get better, right?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and
Hmm.
my one that's one thing my parents have always taught me, especially my dad. My dad is even though he was hard sometimes, he taught me to be strong, and that's actually in one of the song in that song called Father's Day that I'm working on. One of the lines is I want to thank my papas and my dad for really teaching me how to be a man. And
Yeah.
they showed me how to love my kids. I mean, it was a natural love anyway, but they really
Yeah.
showed me what they did for me. It made me want to pass it on to my kids.
Yeah.
And it's just one thing. There's a lot of single moms that have to play the role of the dad, unfortunately. Um,
Hmm.
but I've heard so many comments that they go, well, a dad could never be a mom, but a mom could be a dad. And I'm like, no,
Oh, yeah.
because there's certain things. It's different from a mom and a dad. Like me, I could never be a mom, no matter how hard I try. I can't make that impact like they can. And
Yeah.
like you were saying, the statistics is so high, with with people being in prison, or just doing a lot of and getting in a lot of trouble when they don't have a dad in the home. And that
Yeah.
just it shows how much of an impact, um, how it is. And a lot of people don't see that, because we live in a society where it's pretty much that fathers are basically irrelevant, as long as they have the mom,
Yeah.
that they're fine. And that's not the message that I would that anybody should hear. They should hear that having both parents and working together, um, is what makes that kid grow up to be something. Now, I'm not saying that no kid has never grown up, being something without them. It's just more, definitely a much higher percentage than
Yeah.
without that. I had both of my parents, thankfully, and I was blessed for that. And it made me into the man I am today. And
Yeah.
that's something I'll never be able to repay them for. And they'll always tell me I never have to. So they said just being a good
Yeah.
dad is payment enough. So
That's awesome, man. And I think that's spot on, man. It's not that it can't be done without one of the parents, right? But I'll tell you from my experience, having been basically just raised by my mom, it would be a huge advantage to have both parents. And I grew up with friends that had that, right? And as someone who went through it, I can confidently say that I would have been way better off having both parents. And people take that so personally, where they say, well, I'm just fine, I was just raised by my mom. And as someone who was, I'm telling you, if you remove the ego out of it and you really think about it, you would have been better off with both parents. Like it's just night and day, right? And that's always assuming it's two good parents, right? Two parents that actually care and two parents that give a shit. It's not like, oh, well, what if it's a bad parent? I get those comments too. If you look at some of my videos of like, what
yeah,
about if it's a bad dad? Like, why would you want the bad dad in there? I'm like, you're extrapolating in a weird direction. That's not what we're saying. We're saying two good parents are better than just one good parent. It's just basic kind of math, right? And I think that's what we're striving for, right? And that's definitely what I'm striving for. Of when dads are out there and they need help and they need someone to talk to, being having an outlet here, in the videos, in the comments, listening to your music, right? Creating like this ecosystem of great dads, I think is really what I'm after, and just trying to promote real conversations like this, man. And I'm excited that we were able to do this. Excited that you're gonna create more content that I could share out. And I'd love to have some of your music on here whenever possible, for sure, and help support in that way. But I think overall it's awesome to see great dads coming together and saying, hey, you know what, we're gonna change things. We're not gonna sit by anymore and just let uh popular media or whoever it may be shit all over dads. Like we're
yeah.
we're part of this equation, and we're gonna help raise our kids, and we're gonna help change things. So thanks for jumping on, man. I really appreciate it. And I think this is going to be just one of many conversations to come, man. I'd love to have you back on.
Oh, absolutely, man. I've definitely really enjoyed it,
Yeah, appreciate it. Any last things you'd like to say to dads out there? Anything that we should look out for?
man. Yeah, I got something. Is that it doesn't matter, what your feelings are towards your baby mama, ex-wife, or just your mother of your children in general. Um, Even if she may talk shit about you, or destroy your name, destroy your image, or anything like that. I mean,
Mm,
that's on her. And one day
mhm.
your kids will see that. And as long as you show your kids that, hey, that your mom, you guys just didn't get along, and just never talk bad about the other parent, because or try to alienate them against them, because that event because it doesn't help your kids in the end. It actually just
Yeah.
it'll destroy them, and eventually they get smarter, and they get even smarter even at a younger age now. And and they'll see it. So as long as you live by the example, that is the example they will live when they grow up.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's a great message to put out there. So again, follow Toliver Ray on TikTok. Are you on Instagram too, or YouTube? Any other place?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Go search me up on YouTube. Just type in Toliver Ray or Toliver Ray Music. TikTok is Toliver underscore Ray underscore music. But go follow me on Facebook, Toliver Ray Music, and Instagram is the same name as my TikTok. So,
Beautiful, man. We'll share the music too as it comes out, and make sure to support. So thanks again, man. Appreciate it, and love the conversation, and definitely look forward to more.
all right. Thanks, man.